Our drama begins with our handsome hero Cam taking part in a golf match. We then see him riding a horse, and of course the match ends with his victory. After that, we see Cam's mother throwing him a luxurious birthday party, the kind that melts your heart, and she's invited elite guests from high society. While his mother is seated, enjoying the festive atmosphere and looking pleased, we see our beautiful heroine, Lee, standing nearby, staring at Cam's mom. She pulls a photo from her pocket showing her own mom and dad, and she notices how much her mother looks like Cam's mom. This makes her happy, and she says to herself, "Finally, I found you, Mom, after all this suffering." She heads toward her to reveal that she's her daughter, but Cam suddenly grabs her hand and pulls her away, thinking she was sent by his enemy to take revenge on him. But Lee shocks him by revealing that she's actually his twin sister. She shows him documents and photos of her parents to prove it. Cam is stunned and doesn't believe her at first. He says, "How can that be? You don't even look like me. You were always better than me at school too." Then suddenly, as they're talking, they both find themselves putting their fingers in their mouths the same exact way, a strange but shared habit. Cam then says, "Maybe you really are my twin sister." But he still wants solid proof. He takes her home and gives her a piece of his mother's hair and takes a sample of hers so they can run a DNA test. While there, Lee notices a gift box on the table and hands it to Cam. When he opens it and sees a watch inside, he throws it away and says he doesn't like the color. Lee gets upset and scolds him, saying, "How can you throw such an expensive watch like that just because you're rich? You don't care about its value. I spent 6 months' salary just to afford the plane ticket to come here." Cam replies, "If you sacrifice 6 months of salary just to come here, then maybe you really are my twin sister." While they're talking, they suddenly hear his mother and sister coming, so Cam hides Lee, but they forget the photo of her parents on the table. When Cam's sister sees the photo, she's surprised and asks her mom who the man in the photo is. Without even looking, the mother says she doesn't know him. The daughter insists, "How can you not know him? Take a good look at the photo." But the mother still refuses to look at it, grabs it, throws it in the trash, and says, "I told you, I don't know him and I've never seen him before." After they leave, Lee realizes that the woman isn't her mother and feels devastated. She starts crying, deeply embarrassed by what happened with Cam. Cam lets her cry it out until she calms down, telling her he's going to cut the cake. After that, Lee decides to leave and return to where she came from. As she's walking away, Cam sees her and stops her. He gives her a piece of cake, saying he saved it for her since her birthday falls on the same day as his. He also gives her the watch back and tells her to sell it to pay off her debts since he doesn't need it. Lee says, "Don't make me weak and accept it from you just because I like it." But he hands it to her anyway and says he wants to see her in the future, grown up and fit. Maybe then he'll think about falling in love with her. Lee replies that she'll do her best to become fit, just the way he likes, and she wants that too. She tells him she hopes to see him in the future, like a dog disliked and ignored by everyone. She also tells him to live out his wild boy dreams and do whatever he wants. He replies, "As you wish, my dear," and she leaves. 10 years pass, and we see that Cam has become a very famous chef and owns a 5-star restaurant. Meanwhile, Lee's life is a mess. She works as a sales representative at a Russian company, and she's completely unfocused at work. Her manager yells at her, so she takes a mint tablet to calm her nerves. Her colleague tells her that won't help and she needs to take a break and change her environment. Lee tells her she wants to buy a house and turn it into a restaurant in Jeju. Her friend says houses there are very expensive and she won't be able to afford one, but Lee says not to worry, she found a very cheap house and got her brother Jun to take time off work to go check it out and tell her what he thinks. When he arrives at the location, he finds that the house is actually an abandoned hut with no running water. But when he calls Lee, he lies and tells her the place is in super luxury condition with great water access, just like she wanted. She gets really happy and tells him to go ahead and sign the contract. A few days later, Lee talks to her aunt and says she's heading to her new home. The aunt tells her to take care of herself. We also find out Lee is engaged and her fiancé traveled to Japan to work, save up, and marry her. She prepares a gift of matching outfits for both of them and sends them to him. Meanwhile, Cam is at his restaurant in Jeju when he receives a call from a friend inviting him to a gathering at a restaurant in Seoul saying Yona will be there. Cam is thrilled and drops everything to travel there. At the restaurant, when everyone gathers and Yona arrives, they're all happy and Cam gives her extra attention. It's clear he likes her. At the same time, Lee's friend has also invited her to the same restaurant, and their table ends up very close to Cam's. When Lee sees him, she tries to avoid being noticed. After they finish eating, Lee and her friend go to the cashier to pay. As Lee takes money out of her bag, it falls to the floor. At that moment, Cam and his friends are leaving. When Lee sees them approaching, she hides herself, and Cam doesn't see her. After she leaves, she sees an ad showing the beauty of Jeju Island, and she starts imagining Cam. Then she gets a call saying her brother wants to sell the house in Jeju. She rushes to the airport but finds all the seats are booked. She begs the staff to find her any spot, even if she has to sit on the floor, but they say it's not allowed. They suggest she wait in the lounge in case someone cancels their ticket. At the same time, Cam is also traveling to sell his restaurant. He sees Lee standing and starts watching her. A man and his wife arrive to pick up their tickets, but they start arguing and the wife throws her ring on the floor. Lee whispers to herself, "Please let them break up so they cancel their tickets and I can travel." Cam walks over and greets her. She pretends not to recognize him, so he reminds her, saying, "Did you forget me? I never forgot you. You were always on my mind." She replies, "Sorry, time makes people forget." They take the tickets of the couple who canceled and travel together to Jeju. When they arrive, Lee doesn't know how to get to the house from the airport, so Cam offers her a ride. Halfway there, he gets an urgent call and has to return. He heads to his company to wait for the manager. When the manager arrives, Cam pulls him aside to tell him he doesn't have the money to pay off his debts. When the manager sees Lee, he asks Cam who she is. Cam suddenly gets an idea and says she's his fiancée and they're about to get married. The manager then gives Cam more time to gather the money and leaves. Lee scolds him, saying, "You're using me now and calling me your fiancée just to get an extension? Do rich people take loans like us too?" Cam says, "Of course it's not like you think." She's surprised. Then he asks if her brother can buy his restaurant to help him pay his debts. She replies, "I came here to stop him from buying a restaurant, and now you want me to convince him to buy yours?" She grabs her bag from the car and says, "Since you used me, this ride is your payment," and walks away angrily. She goes to her brother's friend's house and goes out for a walk, where she sees people selling horses at high prices. She starts calculating the amount and says this is a great project. From just one day's rent, she could buy a house with that money. She moves closer to look at the horses and sees a man on a horse who looks like her fiancé, wearing the same outfit she sent him as a gift. She tells herself it can't be him since he's in Japan. What would bring him here? Suddenly, she sees a girl riding a horse, wearing the twin outfit set, and calling his name. She says, "Glory be to God, even his name is the same as my fiancé's." She looks closely and realizes it's actually him. She yells at him, "You con artist, what are you doing here? Weren't you in Japan, and who's this girl? Oh dear, Mommy and Daddy, I'll show you now." She mounts a horse and starts chasing him to get her revenge. He tells her to leave him alone because he's already married and is on his honeymoon. She says, "You even got married? I'll make steak out of you." She finds a metal rod while chasing him and throws it at him on horseback, but it misses. Then she finds herself being awakened by the horse owner, who tells her she fainted and fell off the horse. She looks at herself and finds she's lying on a baby horse and says, "Yuck, gross." She goes over to a water stream to clean up, and while she's washing the sole of her shoe, her boss calls and tells her she's fired. She's shocked, drops the phone, and leaves the shoe in the water stream. Suddenly, Cam appears nearby, picks up the shoe from the water, and approaches her. He finds her very upset and says that today is their birthday, and since they're twins, he's inviting her to his restaurant and will cook her a delicious meal. She tells him to get out of her face before she commits a crime, and tells him to stop being nice because she's had enough. He says, "Calm down a bit. If you want to hit me and let out all your anger on me, go ahead. I just want you to be okay." But when he sees there's no use, he tells her if she doesn't come to the restaurant, he'll change his mind and won't let her taste any food. So she goes with him. There, his friend's son thinks she's Yona. She tells him she's actually his friend Lee, and they get introduced. She offers to help him with the food. At that moment, her brother and his wife arrive at the restaurant to eat, and she's shocked to find them in Jeju, enjoying her money. She calls out to her brother, and when he sees her, they're both shocked too and run away from her. She chases after them, and when they get tired of running, they stop. She asks her brother where the house he bought for her is, and he tells her she's standing next to it. She says, "Where? All I see is a ruin." He says, "That's at your house, but it's super luxurious inside." They ask her to go inside and check, saying she'll love it. When she enters, she finds it even worse than it looked from outside, and there's no water. She's extremely shocked. She tries to sit on a wooden plank, but it breaks and she falls along with the door. She breaks down, and her brother and his wife run away quickly. Cam and the real estate agent are waiting outside and say Lee is truly pitiful and wonder how a brother could do this to his sister. What a strange world we live in. Then they see Lee sitting sadly on a chair outside the house. She pulls out her mint tablet to calm down, which she had stored in a painkiller container she found in the airport bathroom. Cam thinks she's seriously ill and has cancer. He says to himself, "Poor Koki." She returns to her home in Seoul, and Cam accompanies her to the airport, gives her a meal he made for her, and tells her to eat well. He says he'll be waiting for her to come to his restaurant next year. She tells him, "I'm never going to Jeju again," but he says, "Don't say that I must see you again." We then see her back home, crying bitterly over her lost money and efforts. She eats the meal Cam made and keeps thinking about him, then starts crying again. A few days later, we see her traveling to Jeju again, bringing all her belongings with her because she's decided to live in the ruin. Her palace. When Cam sees her, he's surprised and asks, "What brought you back? You haven't even been gone a week." She says she's decided to live there until she dies. He's shocked and says to himself, "What? Is she about to die or what? Oh my God." Lee goes to her palace to clean and settle in again. While trying to clean, she finds a hose and thinks it's a snake and starts screaming. Cam is outside and hears her screaming, so he rushes inside and asks what's wrong. She tells him there's a snake, so he runs away and tells her to get out of the house quickly. When he sees she hasn't come out yet, he tries to go back in, terrified, to help her get rid of the snake. In the process, he hits his head on the wall and faints. When he regains consciousness, Lee tells him, "I do appreciate that you tried to save me from the snake, but I have to shock you, it was actually just a hose, and even if there were snakes and bugs in the house, I'd try to get rid of them myself. I'm never going to leave my house and run away." He tells her snakes are poisonous and could kill her. She replies, "Well, I'm going to die anyway, I'm not afraid of anything." He's surprised and remembers the painkiller box, and he feels very sad. At that moment, Lee asks him to watch her bags in the house until she comes back from the bathroom. He tells her not to worry, there are no thieves here. He takes her and brings her to his house, and she's surprised to find out he lives next door, they're neighbors. She asks if the place is his, and he says it's rented. He brings her inside, and she finds the house very nice. He tells her since her place has no bed, no plumbing, and nothing at all, she should stay here until her house gets renovated, and of course he'll help her with that. He gives her a key to his house, and she takes it, saying it's only because he insisted. Then she asks him to leave so she can use the bathroom. So he heads to his restaurant to give her some privacy. Meanwhile, his brother calls him and says their boss found out he lied about being married to Lee and now wants his money back or else he'll go to jail. Cam asks, "How did he find out?" And his brother says, "I'll tell you when you get here." Cam asks, "Why? Where are you now?" And his brother says, "I'm standing in front of your house." Cam is shocked and runs back quickly so his brother doesn't see Lee. Meanwhile, his brother enters the house and finds Lee looking for some loose change. He says, "What brought you back to Jeju? Didn't you use my brother and run off?" She replies that she's staying here now and just came to Cam's house to use the bathroom, nothing more. At that moment, Cam arrives and is shocked that his brother saw Lee and thought she was a scammer trying to rob him. After his brother leaves the house, he confronts Cam outside and argues with him, saying Cam needs to figure things out and pay off his debts. Then he leaves. When Cam goes inside, Lee gets angry at him for using her again and making her look like a scammer and a thief. She gets very upset and walks out. When she gets home, she's shocked to find her bags and belongings missing. She calls Cam, and he tells her that no one steals in this area but promises to call the police. Lee starts searching everywhere. Then she gets a call from the city council telling her to come because they found her bag. When she arrives and sees her things, she's very happy. It turns out the village mayor had taken her bags, thinking they were garbage left in front of the abandoned house. He didn't know it was her home. Lee yells at him, but once she realizes he's the mayor, she starts speaking to him kindly and gently, hoping he'll help her with any future problems and trying to win him over. He's very surprised by her change in attitude. Later, Cam joins her, and they return to the house together. She gives him her valuable belongings to hide at his place, including a gold reward she got when she was fired. She tells him to take good care of it because she plans to sell it and use the money to fix up her mansion. As she's about to leave, he asks her to stay the night. He asks her to sleep at his house instead of staying in her ruined place that doesn't even have a proper door, but she refuses and insists on leaving. Minutes later, he worries about her and goes to her house, only to find her heading somewhere. He asks, "Where are you going now, beautiful?" She replies that she's going to sleep on the mountain because it's her life's wish to see the sunrise. He drives her there and tells her he'll stay with her and won't leave her alone because she's a delicate girl. Cam decides to sleep in the car with her. When Lee wakes up, she finds the sun has already risen and is shocked. She starts crying and says she's unlucky and will stay that way forever. When Cam hears her say that about herself, he decides to take her to a faraway mountain so she can catch the actual beginning of the sunrise. After a long and tiring journey, they finally arrive, and she manages to see the sunrise. She becomes very happy and thanks him for his effort, and Cam is happy with her happiness. The next morning, she goes to collect her ID card and then heads to Cam's restaurant but doesn't find him. She finds his friend's son instead, who tells her they have a lot of customers today, and Cam is very busy. Among the customers is a special lady named Miss Lee, who comes every day for dinner, takes photos of Cam, and writes articles about him. Lee goes to Miss Lee's house and starts looking up her articles to read what she has written about Cam. She reads one article after another until she finds one that talks about Cam's personal life, saying he met his first love on his 19th birthday. Lee believes she must be his first love, because the first time she met him was also on their 19th birthday. She becomes very happy. At that moment, Cam arrives and finds her eating food from outside. He tells her that kind of food is unhealthy and insists she should come to the restaurant for dinner, since they're going to celebrate her decision to settle permanently in Jeju. She thinks his attention is because he's in love with her. She tells him she wants to fix the house roof so rain doesn't leak inside. He says he'll fix the roof himself. Just then, her phone rings, and it's the contractor calling to ask her to come discuss the house renovation. She asks Cam for permission to leave and goes. Cam stays behind to fix the roof, but while working, he gets a call from Yona. She tells him she's coming to Jeju to see him, will arrive by dinner, and wants him to prepare a delicious meal for her. Cam becomes very happy, drops everything, and rushes to the restaurant to prepare a romantic dinner. He tells his friend to close the restaurant and cancel all reservations for the day because the first love of his life is coming. Cam wants to buy an expensive lemon juice for Miss Yona, but realizes he doesn't have any money. So he decides to take Lee's golden reward and sell it to buy the lemon juice. He goes to the airport to pick Yona up. Meanwhile, Cam's brother calls Yona, and she contacts Cam to tell him she's postponing the trip to another day because she's feeling sick. Cam becomes very upset and goes to his brother Song's hotel to pick up the lemon juice bottle. There, he's shocked to find Yona sitting with another man for the 10th time. She's cheating on him, yet he's still determined to be with her, the fool. Meanwhile, Lee goes to the restaurant and finds a sign saying it's closed for the day. She goes inside and finds a romantic dinner set on the table. She becomes very happy and thinks it's all for her. She asks Cam's friend why the restaurant is closed today when so many customers are supposed to come. He tells her that Yona, Cam's first love, is coming, and that she's the real reason Cam opened the restaurant in the first place. She's completely shocked, and her heart shatters into a million pieces. She returns home heartbroken, and is even more devastated when she finds that Cam ruined the roof instead of fixing it. Everything is thrown around in a mess. She tries to fix it, but it starts raining on her, so she goes inside the house and puts her bag under the part of the roof where there's no leak and sleeps. In the middle of the night, she gets really hungry and decides to go to the restaurant to get the fish she bought for Cam, saying he doesn't deserve it. First, she goes to his house to get her umbrella and is shocked when she sees the box of her golden reward is empty. Poor girl. Her whole day is full of shocks. It's really heartbreaking. Then she heads to Cam's restaurant and finds him asleep. She thinks he stayed up with Yona and wakes him up saying, So you had a great time with your sweetheart and sold my golden reward, huh? How shameless of you. He tells her he'll pay her back when he has the money, and that she wanted to sell it anyway. She yells at him and demands the money immediately, so he throws some small change in her face and tells her to pick it up off the floor and get out. She becomes very upset and tells him, "Right, you think I'm a beggar and poor, so you feel sorry for me," then leaves. Suddenly it starts to thunder, and the wind gets very strong. The roof of her house is about to fly off. She rushes up to the roof to keep it from blowing away. Meanwhile, Cam gets worried about her because of the heavy rain and goes to her. He finds her lying on the roof under the rain, shouts at her, and pulls her down. She falls to the ground and faints. He carries her to the restaurant. When she wakes up, he prepares a hot meal for her to warm up and finds her fish in the fridge, so he cooks it for her. While they eat, she asks him when Yona left. He sadly tells her that she never came in the first place. They decide to have a drink together, and she tells him how sad she is because she got fired from her job. Her last wish was to fix the house and turn it into a restaurant to earn money, but unfortunately, she has no money left, and the roof is gone. He asks, "So you're sure that was your last wish in life?" She says, "Yes." He suggests she take over his restaurant and manage it until she dies, assuming she's going to die soon. She agrees and hugs him happily, signs the contract, and the restaurant becomes hers. Cam travels to Seoul and asks Yona to meet him. When they meet, he tells her he saw her at his brother's hotel in Jeju, even though she said she wasn't coming. She replies, "Well, you could have come over and said hi," and surprises him by saying she was meeting his brother to get a job at his company. She also tells him she's moving to Jeju and will eat at his restaurant every day, asking him to make her delicious meals. He's shocked because he already sold the restaurant to Lee and doesn't know what to do. He decides to go back to the restaurant. Meanwhile, Lee still can't believe Cam's restaurant is now hers, and thinks she's dreaming because it all feels too unreal. She meets Sun and asks him to stay at the restaurant and help her. He agrees, and she asks him to go buy ingredients for her new menu. He heads to the market to get them. When Lee returns to the restaurant, she finds food cooking on the stove, and suddenly sees Cam, who tells her he's the one cooking. She's shocked and asks him, "Why did you come back again? Didn't you leave yesterday and give me the restaurant?" He tells her the restaurant is in bad shape, so he returned to help for a few days before leaving again. That day, the restaurant fills with customers, and Cam stops her from cooking anything. He does all the cooking himself and makes her act as the restaurant's server. At the end of the day, he wants to sleep in the room above the restaurant, which is supposed to be her room, but she kicks him out and makes him sleep downstairs in the restaurant. She's confused about why he came back and is still staying. She senses there's something more to the story. A little while later, Cam comes up again and begs her to let him sleep on the floor in her room because he's scared a thief might come and kill him. She says, "Weren't you the one who said there are no thieves here? Get out before I kill you myself." And he leaves. When she goes to bed, she starts to worry about him, thinking it must be cold downstairs. She brings him a blanket, but when she goes down, she doesn't find him. She keeps searching until she finds him, feels relieved, and returns to her room to sleep. The next morning, she goes downstairs to clean the restaurant. When Cam wakes up, she grabs him and says, "I'm not letting you go until you tell me the truth. Why did you come back to the restaurant after saying you were going to Seoul?" He tells her he has no money left, not even a house, because his brother paid off all his debts by freezing his assets and blocking his cards. He has nowhere else to go, so he came back to the restaurant. She feels sorry for him and tells him to stay. He suggests they split the restaurant since he practically gave it to her for free. He only took her golden reward in exchange. After she agrees, he asks her to go with him to the supermarket to buy ingredients for a new dish he wants to add to the menu. She finds the ingredients very expensive, and on top of that, she's the one paying because he's broke. When he finishes creating the dish, and she and his friend Sun taste it, they like it. But she tells him she won't let him add it to the menu. She suggests instead that the sea is nearby and full of free fish. Why not go catch some and create new main dishes from them? She convinces him with the idea and decides to go gather sea snails from the shore. While she's sitting and collecting them, the village mayor passes by and sees she doesn't know how to collect them properly, so he comes over and teaches her. She thanks him, and he leaves. Then we see Miss Lee secretly taking pictures of Lee while she's fishing and writing articles about her. Her coworkers at the company see the photos and start laughing at her, saying they need to go on a vacation to Jeju and visit her. After Lee finishes, she sees Miss Lee photographing her, but doesn't recognize her, so she's confused why she's so focused on taking her picture. She leaves her and returns to the restaurant. Cam invents a new main dish using the sea snails, and everyone loves it. Lee loves it even more because it's cheap and will make them a lot of money over the month. So she decides Thursday won't be a day off anymore, and the next day, she writes an announcement to put in front of the restaurant and by the roadside to let people know about the new dish and that they'll be open on Thursdays. When Cam sees her, he refuses to let that dish be added to the menu, and they argue about it, but she insists on including it and tells him that the restaurant is no longer his, so his opinion doesn't matter. He tells her he needs money to buy the same ingredients he used for his special dish because Yona is coming from Seoul today. She replies, "Oh, so you made that dish for her," and refuses to give him any money. So he goes inside the restaurant and takes money from the cash register and leaves to pick up Yona and take her to the company. He tells her he's waiting for her for dinner. Meanwhile, Lee finds that no one has come to the restaurant, even though she was expecting it to be full because of her new dish. She takes a big plate of sea snails to sell to a sushi restaurant, but while walking, some of the snails fall. She tries to pick them up and drops her phone. Just then, Sun calls her, and she answers using her toes. He tells her that customers came to the restaurant and he served them her sea snail dish. She replies, "What customers? And what food? Come help me, this thing is too heavy and I can't move or walk." At that moment, the village mayor passes by on a motorcycle, helps her carry the dish, and takes her to a famous restaurant where he sells it for her. She thanks him and he invites her to eat with him at the restaurant. She tells him, "You should have come and eaten at my restaurant instead. You could have given me the money you're spending here." He tells her that she needs to get an idea of how other restaurants operate, see what hers is missing, and improve it. Then he confesses his feelings for her, but she turns him down, saying she doesn't want to get into a relationship with him. After they finish eating and go outside, he talks to her about the successful restaurants nearby so she can learn from them. While they're walking, she spots Cam's car parked in front of his brother's company, so she heads there after picking up the fish Cam wanted. She looks around for him to return with him in the car, but doesn't find him. She goes to take the elevator and finds Yona waiting. Lee doesn't know that Yona is Cam's first love and accidentally bumps into her, causing Yona to drop her coffee. Yona leaves the spill and gets into the elevator, but Lee stops her and tells her to clean it up first. Yona says the janitor will clean it, but Lee replies that the janitor is probably exhausted and she should be considerate enough to wipe it herself. It'll only take a minute. Yona says, "Fine," and quickly gets into the elevator. Lee ends up cleaning the mess herself. At that moment, her former boss and colleagues pass by and see her cleaning. They ask, "What, are you working as a cleaner here now?" She replies, "No," but one of them says, "Yes, we saw you collecting sea snails too. We read about it in the newspaper." They tell her they're in Jeju for a workshop and want to go take pictures with her by the sea. Cam is standing at a distance, listening to them mocking her job. As they get ready to leave, they ask Lee to join them on the bus, but she refuses. At that moment, Cam pulls up in his car and tells her, "Get in, my queen." He gets out and introduces himself. They're shocked to learn he's the famous chef Cam. He tells them he works for Lee at her restaurant. They're stunned and say, "No way, Lee owns a restaurant?" And they say, "And you work there too? Then we definitely have to come dine at your place." He replies, "Of course, you're always welcome." After that, Lee goes to the market to buy ingredients, and Cam starts preparing them a fancy dinner, top-notch. They're all very impressed, and Lee feels really happy and proud that he made her look good in front of her former colleagues. After they leave, Cam asks Lee to have dinner with him outside the restaurant, saying he'll prepare everything for her and asks her to wear something warm because it's cold. While he's preparing the romantic dinner, Yona suddenly arrives and he's shocked. He welcomes her, and they sit at the table together, chatting and eating the meal he had prepared. When Lee arrives, she's shocked to find him sitting with another girl. She sits down with them, and Cam introduces them to each other, but Lee says they already know each other from the company when the coffee spilled on the floor. Yona pretends not to remember and says, "Sorry, I forget things a lot." Cam tells Yona that he was preparing a romantic dinner and somehow felt she was coming, so it's great that she showed up just before he and Lee started eating. Lee struggles to stay composed and keeps quiet, while Cam winks at her, trying to prompt her to say something. Yona starts to suspect there's something between them, but Cam quickly says they're just friends, and that Lee is now working at his restaurant. Then he asks Lee to leave. saying, "Now that you've finished eating, let us sit alone together." Lee walks away angry and goes inside to drink lemon juice straight from the bottle. A few minutes later, Cam realizes the weather has turned cold, so he tells Yona he's going inside to get her his shawl. He finds Lee inside and tells her to help him, just like he helped her and made her look good in front of her boss and coworkers. She gets mad and says she's going to sleep. He replies, "Sleep? With Yona here? What will she think if she finds out you sleep here and that the restaurant isn't even mine anymore?" He asks her to go for a walk outside until Yona leaves, then she can come back. She agrees and walks outside in the freezing cold without proper clothes, eventually sitting on the waterfront drinking lemon juice. At that time, the mayor is sitting at Aunt Sally's restaurant with his friends eating, and they spot her from a distance. They think the mayor is dating her, but he tells them they're not together. There was just some work between them. Then he walks over to her and asks if he can sit and drink with her. She asks him, "If we sit and drink together now, does that mean we'll get married?" He says yes. She then goes with him to Aunt Sally's restaurant, where they sit and eat with the village residents. Shortly after, the contractor calls. It's Cam, asking for a driver for Yona. The contractor arranges a driver, and Yona finally leaves. Cam then starts looking for Lee to bring her back to the restaurant, worried about her. He's shocked when he sees her sitting with the mayor, drinking at the restaurant by the canal. At that moment, Cam gets very jealous and calls her, asking where she is. She tells him she's sitting with her friends and that he shouldn't worry about her. He gets angry, hangs up, and walks off. Lee wants to leave, but the mayor tells her, "Didn't Cam stay up all night with his sweetheart? Now you can stay out as long as you like, punish him a little." She replies, "You know what, that's not a bad idea," and continues enjoying her evening with them. She returns home late at night, and Cam has been anxiously waiting for her return. When he sees her approaching from afar, he pretends not to care. He tells her she shouldn't meet with the mayor again, so that people don't start thinking there's something between them. She responds, "And what's wrong with that? I'd be lucky if he were my fate. He's the village mayor, he has power, and everyone in town loves him, unlike you." Cam gets angry, walks away, and goes to sleep. One day, Cam's brother holds a meeting at his company in Jeju and tells the employees they must stop smoking, himself included. He tells them that the most important thing is determination and willpower. After work, he heads home with his driver. The driver tells him how impressed he is with his determination to quit smoking. Halfway home, Cam's brother feels like having a cigarette, so he tells the driver to go ahead and wait for him, saying he wants to get some fresh air by the sea. After the driver walks off, he takes out a cigarette and says, "I swear to you, Seal, this is the last one, and I'll never smoke again." He tries to light it, but the wind is too strong, and the lighter keeps going out. He sees a stairway that leads straight down to the sea and goes halfway down to hide from the wind and light his cigarette. Suddenly, he slips and falls into the sea and starts drowning because he doesn't know how to swim. Just then, he sees a mermaid coming to save him, and then he loses consciousness. When he wakes up, he realizes it was a female diver who rescued him. Suddenly, she slaps him and tells him never to try something like that again, saying his life is important. He's shocked and asks why she hit him. She tells him, "If you felt the pain, that means you're alive." Then she prepares food for him and warms him up, and he starts liking her. After he finishes eating, she walks him halfway back and gives him money to get home, thinking he's poor. Day after day, he keeps thinking about her and imagining her everywhere. Eventually, his company decides to celebrate Yona joining the team, and someone suggests holding the event at Cam's brother's restaurant. When he hears that, he says he'll join them, of course, because Cam's restaurant is close to the diver Sully. Meanwhile, Cam needs money to pay off his debts and get gas for his car, so he sends his brother a message through his manager. A sports car that runs without gas, Cam doesn't want to accept it, but Lee convinces him to take it because it'll be very useful for them. So he takes it. The next morning, Cam is preparing food in the restaurant with Lee's help. At that moment, Yona calls him and tells him her brother is going to host a party at Cam's restaurant. Cam is very happy and informs Lee so they can get ready for the event. She tells him, "Just because you know them doesn't mean the food should be free. They'll pay like everyone else." He replies, "Don't worry, if my brother is coming, he'll cover all the expenses." A few days later, they're preparing the ingredients for the party. Cam is very protective of Lee and doesn't let her do any hard work. She loses something, so she empties her whole bag. Sun sees the cancer painkiller box and asks her about it. She tells him she found it in the airport bathroom and uses it to store her mints. He takes the box, laughs at Cam to himself, thinking Cam is pitying her because he believes she has cancer, and throws it in the trash. Lee steps outside the restaurant and sees a foreigner speaking Korean, asking her for the location written on a paper. She helps him, and for the first time, sees the place it turns out to be a registration office for a diving school. She gets the idea to sign up, too, so she can catch fish herself instead of buying it. Then she goes to meet Cam so they can go to the market and buy the rest of the ingredients. While they're shopping, Yona calls Cam and he tells her he's at the market. When she hears Lee's voice beside him, she says the market is nearby and she wants to come join him to walk around with him. Cam is very happy. After he hangs up, he tells Lee to go back to the restaurant because he feels she's tired, and also because the electricity meter reader is coming. She agrees and gives him her credit card, then walks away. She waits for a ride but finds no transportation and ends up coming back only to see him with Yona, feeding her at his expense and laughing together. She's completely shocked and realizes why he had sent her away. She returns to the restaurant heartbroken. When Cam gets back, she takes her card from him and speaks to him harshly. He's confused by her tone. Later at dinner time, Yona arrives with her friends, but her brother doesn't come because he went to Aunt Sally's office to enroll in diving school with her. Yona is upset that her brother didn't show up. Cam brings out the food, and her friends, knowing he's their manager's brother, ask if he and Yona are dating because they seem very close. Yona tells them they're just friends, nothing more. Cam is shocked by her response, and Lee, standing with Sun nearby, hears it and sees the expression on Cam's face. She feels really upset. When Lee finds out that Yona and her friends are leaving, she follows them. Yona gets out of the car, and Lee tells her she should fix what she broke before leaving and not leave Cam in that state. But Yona refuses, saying she just wants to go. Lee doesn't let it slide and says, "If you don't love him, then at least pay for the food you ate and all the expenses Cam spent on you. Or do you plan to leave without paying?" Then she tells her she's the owner of the restaurant. Cam is sitting with her, and at that moment he enters. Yona takes advantage of his presence and pretends she wants to pay Lee for the food, but Cam stops her and tells her not to come back again. She leaves, and Cam walks into the restaurant angrily. Lee follows him and apologizes, but he yells at her and tells her not to interfere between him and Yona again. She tells him that Yona doesn't love him and is just playing with him. He replies, "I know, do you think I'm stupid? But I love her and I can't give her up no matter what. I know when I yelled at her and told her to leave, she'll come back." He's standing close to Lee, and at that moment Yona comes back and sees them standing very close, gets shocked, and leaves. We find out that Cam did that on purpose because he heard her coming and wanted her to get jealous and not walk away from him. Afterward, Lee yells at him and tells him if he keeps using her to get closer to Yona, she'll end up loving him. He asks, "Are you jealous of her? Do you love me or what?" She looks at him, stays silent, and leaves very upset. Cam is left confused. In the middle of the night, he goes to her room and asks her to come have dinner with him. He says he'll make her favorite food. She tells him to stay away from her and stop tempting her, then yells and kicks him out. He says to himself, "What did I do to deserve this? All I said was come eat something I made for you." The next morning, there's a village street cleaning campaign. Lee joins and forces Cam to participate too, so the villagers will start to like him. While sweeping the street, Cam sees a little boy playing with a toy gun and aiming it at people. Cam scolds him and tells him not to do that again because he might hurt someone, but the boy doesn't listen and shoots at a streetlight, breaking it. Cam gets furious and tells him to call his parents and have them replace it. The boy starts crying. At that moment, his grandmother arrives. She turns out to be the HR manager of the diving school. She scolds Cam and blames everything on him, and they get into an argument. Lee comes over when she hears the shouting and sees the boy holding the toy gun. She tells the grandmother her grandson is the one who broke the light and shows her the gun as proof. The grandmother yells at Lee, too, and they argue before leaving. Then the contractor comes and tells Lee that the woman she fought with is the HR manager of the school she applied to, and now she's likely to fail the interview. Cam is shocked to learn that Lee had applied for the competition and doesn't know what to do. Cam suggests she go ask the mayor for help, and if he refuses, then she should blackmail him with an old photo of him wearing boxing gloves for a campaign. When she goes to his office, she calls him out, saying she needs to talk. He comes out and says, "You're here to ask for help because you fought with the HR manager, right?" She's surprised and asks, "How did you know?" He says, "Because I'm the mayor, I know everything." When he sees that she doesn't plan to blackmail him, he decides to help her pass the interview. She's overjoyed and leaves. Meanwhile, Cam thinks about how to make peace with the grandmother. Then he gets the idea to visit her house and invite her, her grandchildren, and her daughter-in-law to the restaurant. He plans to honor her in front of them and pretend that she's the one hosting them, praising her generously in front of everyone. Afterward, they make up, and when the mayor finishes work, he takes Lee to the submarine museum, talks to her about them, and gives her a book to study from for the interview. Then he drops her off at the restaurant. When Cam sees Lee getting out of the mayor's car, he gets very jealous and is just about to start mocking her with the photo. But Lee stops him, tells the mayor to leave, and heads inside. The mayor then goes to meet Grandma Susie to ask her to help Lee. He finds her sitting with her friends, talking about Cam, clearly very happy. He asks, "Any news? What's the latest?" She shocks him by saying she and Cam made up, and that Lee will definitely pass the interview. The next morning is interview day. Cam drops Lee off at the office and tells her he'll wait for her until she's done. After she goes in, Cam's brother arrives and is shocked to see Cam in front of the office. He hides, not wanting to be seen, and calls his sister, asking her to go give Cam a prepaid card with money on it. When his sister talks to Cam and gives him the card, he gets really happy and decides to buy Lee diving gear as a gift. He heads to his sister to collect the card. Before he leaves, she tells him that Yona was there earlier and knew he was coming but refused to stay. Cam then spots Yona's phone where she had been sitting and gets excited. As he steps outside, he sees her walking away, calls her back, and gives her the phone. And just like that, it seems like they've made up and gotten back together, while the heartbroken Lee is forgotten and he's once again distracted by the chameleon. When Lee finishes her interview and doesn't find Cam waiting for her, she gets upset and leaves. On the way, she tells him she's going to buy diving equipment. He tells her that he'll buy it as a gift and asks her to wait for him. She buys ice cream shaped like a bouquet of flowers and waits, but he's really late and the ice cream melts completely. Just as she's about to leave, he shows up and apologizes for being late, then shocks her by saying he was with Yona and that they're traveling together to Seoul now. Lee becomes very jealous and tries to stop him by talking about the restaurant, but he doesn't listen and insists on traveling with Yona. He tells her he'll return the same day and won't be late. She's very upset and says, "Do as you wish," then walks away. When they arrive in Seoul and finish buying everything Yona needs, she says, "It's still early, let's have dinner and hang out." Cam replies that he has errands to run and needs to buy supplies right away, then leaves. She burns with jealousy. Later that night, when Cam returns to the restaurant, Lee argues with him. When she finds out he has a card now, she tells him, "Since you've got money now, please go find somewhere else to stay. You're no longer welcome here." He asks, "Why do you want me to leave?" She says, "Because now you have a monthly allowance." He replies that he's already spent a lot from the card and isn't going anywhere. He'll stay here whether she likes it or not. The next morning, Cam wakes up early to prepare food for the customers, and Lee helps him but keeps ignoring him. When she steps outside, she sees the mayor passing by and stops him, saying, "Don't worry, I'm not inviting you for juice or anything, sir." He replies, "Enough, just tell me what you want." She says, "I just wanted to ask, did I pass or fail the interview?" He tells her he doesn't know yet and that the results will be posted on the website on Monday, but she'll probably pass because she studied well and put in a lot of effort. She thanks him for helping her and getting Grandma Susie to speak on her behalf. He tells her that it was actually Cam who did all that. He personally went to reconcile with her, invited her and her family to the restaurant, and even asked him to take care of her. She's surprised and says, "Really? That actually happened? When? I had no idea until you just told me." She returns to the restaurant feeling really happy and goes to make up with Cam, but she's shocked to find Yona there with him, so she goes back to treating him coldly. That same night, Cam notices a large suitcase placed on a chair and wonders why it's there. Just then, Lee comes in and picks it up, still thinking about what else she can pack inside. Cam grows curious and asks what she's doing. Lee tells him, "You're mad at me, aren't you? Don't worry, I'll relieve you of me soon." The next morning, Cam wakes up and can't find Lee or her suitcase. He asks Sun, who says he doesn't know where she went and that maybe she's never coming back to the restaurant. Cam starts to worry, thinking she's about to die. Sun finally tells him where she is, and Cam rushes to the airport. When he sees her standing in the queue, he pulls her out and pleads with her not to leave him and go. He tells her he'll do anything she wants. She tells him she's only going to attend her friend's wedding and will be back. All the stuff in the suitcase is just gifts for her friends. He opens the suitcase to check and is shocked. He tells her to take care of herself and return the same day because the weather will get bad and flights might be canceled. He reminds her the restaurant needs her. She replies, "I'll come back whenever I want. I own the restaurant, remember?" He says, "Fine, suit yourself." Then adds, "Just take off that hair clip and leave your hair down. You look really pretty that way." After the wedding ends, she looks at herself in the mirror and remembers Cam's words. So she decides to go to the hair salon and get her hair done. On her way back, while riding the bus, the mayor sees her through the window. He chases after the bus on his bicycle all the way to the restaurant, sweating heavily. When she gets off the bus and sees him, she greets him and starts walking away. The mayor stops her and asks if she brought any food because he's hungry. She gives him a pie she brought. Then he tells her that he checked her interview results at the office and she passed. She gets hysterically happy, and he's surprised by her excitement. At that moment, Cam arrives and sees her standing with the mayor, looking extremely happy. He becomes very jealous and asks, "What's going on? What's making you this happy?" She tells him she passed the interview. He immediately hugs her in front of the mayor and says, "Thank God you passed, sweetheart. Let's go to the restaurant and celebrate together." He keeps showing off in front of the mayor and takes her away. As they walk off, he tells her, "Didn't I tell you 1,000,000 times not to stand with him again? People will think you're dating." She's overjoyed because he's jealous over her. She replies, "And what's wrong if I date him and marry him? What is he lacking?" Cam gets upset, so she walks away and heads upstairs. She goes up to her room and is surprised to find that Cam had prepared a surprise for her. He brought her diving gear. She asks, "Are these yours?" He replies that he had actually brought them as a gift for her, but now he thinks she doesn't deserve them. She tells him, "Fine, just give me the goggles and keep the rest." After that, he goes to bed. Lee later comes to him and tells him she also brought him a gift. When he sees it, he's very happy. Then he notices she's wearing makeup and styled her hair just the way he likes, so he compliments her and she's overjoyed. She then asks him to prepare her a delicious dinner because she's starving. He asks, "Didn't you eat at the wedding?" She says she did, but she's hungry again after all the traveling, so he gets up and makes her favorite meal. After eating, he gets indigestion, so she starts hitting his back to relieve him. Then she says, "Aren't you worried about the fact that we're living together and both of us are single?" He replies, "Don't worry. I don't even see you as a girl. If I did, I wouldn't be living with you." She's stunned by what he said and responds, "Okay, but imagine if I had feelings for you, and every time I see you, my heart races like right now." At that moment, he falls silent. She smacks him and says, "What's wrong? Why are you so shocked? I'm just joking, Camus." Then she walks away, leaving him stunned and his heart racing. The next morning, we learn that the diving school is organizing a festival and has requested sponsorship from Song's company. When Song hears about it, he immediately agrees. When Miss Sully finds out that the company agreed to sponsor them, she gets very excited, knowing he did it for her. The next day is the first day of training at the diving school. Lee wakes up and sees Cam lying on the swing outside. He's actually awake but pretending to be asleep. She tells him it's her first day of training, and he encourages her, telling her to take care of herself. She promises that the first thing she catches after learning deep diving, she'll give it to him as a gift. They agree on that, and she leaves. Meanwhile, Yona is at the office and gets the idea to go tell Song about Cam and Lee living together. But he shuts her down and says, "So what? That girl is kind and dependable. I wish you were more like her." Yona gets furious, throws the folders at him, and leaves. Then she decides to go to Cam's sister and tells her that Cam gave up his restaurant for the so-called beauty queen Lee, stirring things up. That same night, Lee is preparing for the mayor and his co-workers who are coming to eat at their restaurant. She sends Cam to the market to buy some supplies. While he's out, Cam's sister arrives, speaks to Lee rudely and tells her to stay away from her brother and that she wants to reclaim his restaurant. Lee tells her to pay the amount stated in the contract and she'll leave immediately. The sister agrees, then gives her the keys to their apartment and tells her to hand them to Cam when he returns from the market and to make sure he returns home tonight as soon as possible. When Cam comes back from the market, he's tired and overheated. Lee tells him, "Sorry I made you go out, but don't worry from now on. I won't trouble you again because you're leaving the restaurant and going away from here." She gives him the key to his apartment and tells him that his sister came by and wants him to return home as soon as possible. He replies, "What about tomorrow's banquet? Who's going to help you with it?" She says, "Don't worry, Sum is here and will help me." So he packs his clothes and leaves happily, saying, "Finally, I'm free from this work and its misery." When he arrives at his apartment, which is in a compound filled with lots of entertainment facilities, he's very happy at first, but then he starts feeling bored because he's gotten used to having Lee around. The next morning, he goes to sit by the swimming pool and Yona comes to him there. At the same time, Lee needs Cam's help with the banquet, so Sam tells her to take the rest of Cam's stuff to him and ask him to come help at the restaurant and then return home afterward. She says, "That's a great idea." She takes his belongings, but when she enters the compound, she's shocked to see him sitting with Yona and joking with her. She calls him and says she brought the rest of his stuff and will leave it with the secretary. He can collect it from her. Cam says, "Wait, let me see you," but she refuses and walks off. Cam spends the whole day thinking about her and looking for an excuse to go back to the restaurant. While he's sitting in his room, his brother shows up, and Cam steps out to meet him in the reception. His brother says, "What are you doing here?" Cam seizes the opportunity and says, "I know you didn't want me here from the beginning," and starts packing his clothes, returning to the restaurant. He arrives and starts calling for Lee, but finds out she had grilled fish and ate it herself instead of giving it to him as she had promised. He says, "What kind of betrayal is this? You were supposed to give them to me." He keeps looking for her and finds her lying on the restaurant couch, holding an empty lemon juice bottle and unaware of her surroundings. She opens her eyes, clearly exhausted, and he tells her he'll get her some water. She grabs his hand and says, "Don't leave me." So he stays with her. The next morning, Lee is confused about why Cam is there and asks Sum if he called him to help with the banquet. Sum tells her Cam came back because of her. She's overjoyed, and they start preparing for the banquet. Meanwhile, the mayor's co-workers know that the mayor has feelings for Lee, so they come up with a plan to bring them closer. Mr. Kong goes to Cam to ask him to join their plan since he's close to Lee. He tells Cam the whole idea. They'll play a game, and the winner will get a silver necklace. They'll all intentionally lose, so the mayor wins and gives the necklace to Lee and puts it around her neck, thus bringing them closer. Cam says, "Oh, I see." Then the banquet begins, and the mayor and his co-workers arrive. They make Lee sit next to the mayor and ask him to pour her some juice. Then they suggest playing the game together. The plan starts, and everyone deliberately loses to the mayor. But when it comes to the last person, Cam steps up and reveals that he knows about their plan and won't let the mayor win that easily and get the prize. The mayor says, "All right, then challenge me yourself." Cam agrees immediately, and the showdown begins. Cam beats the mayor and wins the prize, feeling very happy. He gives the necklace to Lee and says, "Here, take this necklace. It's a gift for you." But she replies, "Give it to the girl you love. Just because you won doesn't mean I should take it." And she walks away. At that moment, Cam receives an important phone call, drops everything, and leaves. Later, Lee notices that Cam is missing from the restaurant, so she asks Sum where he went. Sum tells her someone called him and he just left quickly, maybe it was Yona or something. Lee becomes upset, thinking he went to see Yona to give her the necklace. Meanwhile, we see Cam sitting with a senior doctor. We learn that the doctor had just returned from a trip, and Cam tells him he's worried because his friend is very sick and he doesn't know what to do. He shows the doctor a photo of the pills Lee takes. When the doctor sees them, he tells Cam that it's a strong painkiller for late-stage cancer and that he must tell her immediately so she can be hospitalized before it's too late. At the same time, Yona arrives at the restaurant but doesn't find Cam there. That's when Lee realizes he didn't go to see Yona to give her the necklace, and she feels very happy. When Cam returns to the restaurant, he doesn't know how to tell her that he knows about her illness. Instead, he gives her the necklace and tells her he entered the competition for her, and the necklace belongs to her, not anyone else. She accepts it and feels very happy. Later, Cam's brother is hosting a big party at the villa and invites Lee to come with him. She's thrilled and says, "As long as everything's free there, of course I'll go with you." Cam then asks if there's any place she's always wanted to visit, because he wants to tell her something. Lee is very excited, thinking he's going to confess his love. When she steps out of the restaurant, she sees the mayor riding by on his bicycle, so she stops him and asks, "What's the best place in Jeju City? I want to visit it." He tells her there are many beautiful places that only he knows about, but he won't tell her unless she agrees to marry him. She replies, "No thanks, I don't want to know anything from you," and walks away. He leaves, then returns, and tells her about a beautiful place anyway. She thanks him, and he goes. Afterward, she goes to Cam and asks him to take her to that place after the party. The next morning, Yona arrives at the party and is surprised to see the doctor there. She greets him and asks, "Why did you suddenly come?" He replies that he came because Cam wanted to consult him about his sick friend and was very worried about her. Yona asks, "Who's the friend that's sick?" Then she suddenly thinks of Lee. As she's walking, she sees Cam arriving at the party with Lee and angrily says, "What is she doing here?" She runs into Sam, stops him, and asks, "Is Lee really a cancer patient?" He says, "What? How did you know?" She replies, "Cam told you?" He says no, but she found out from the doctor. Sam then explains it was all a misunderstanding. Lee isn't sick. Yona is relieved and immediately gets an idea to stir up trouble between them. She approaches Lee and says, "So you're here with us too?" Lee replies smugly, "Cam invited me personally, so I came." Yona then tells her, "Listen, sweetheart, Cam loves you, but he's only being nice to you out of pity. He thinks you're a cancer patient, and that's why he gave you his restaurant. He thought you were going to die." Lee is shocked by Yona's words and leaves the party. Later, Yona meets with Cam and asks him, "Are you looking for Lee?" He tells her that he brought Lee with him to the party, but now he can't find her anywhere, and she's not answering his calls. Yona replies, "Don't bother, sweetheart. She won't answer you. She left the party as soon as she found out the truth. You probably still think she has cancer, but the truth is she lied to you so you'd feel sorry for her." Cam is stunned and walks away. He heads to the place he had planned to take Lee and finds her sitting there. When Lee sees him, she says, "Of course you think I have cancer, and were being nice to me out of pity, giving me the restaurant until I die. Well, don't worry, I'm not going to die anytime soon. You must be upset now that you gave the restaurant to someone who isn't dying." Cam walks up to her and hugs her, telling her the restaurant will always be hers until the day she dies, and their deal still stands. Then they sit together and he says, "You're unbelievable. You had no idea how worried I was. I couldn't sleep at night thinking you were dying." She replies, "Well, if you had just asked me, I would have told you instead of spending all this time making assumptions. I was so happy when you gave me the restaurant. I worked in it with so much love, but now that I know it was all just pity, all my hopes are crushed. I can't run a restaurant that isn't truly mine. I have to leave today." Cam tells her not to go and to forget everything that happened between them tonight because he's too exhausted to think. When they return to the restaurant, Sam is afraid Cam will be mad at him for hiding the truth. But Cam tells him, "I'll deal with you later. I don't even have the energy to hit you right now," and walks off to bed. Later, Lee prepares the contract and goes to Cam, who pretends to be asleep. She tells him she has to leave because his kindness made her fall in love with him without realizing it. She never knew he was only treating her kindly because he thought she had cancer, and she confesses that she loves him deeply. That's why she has to leave. As she turns to go, Cam grabs her hand and says he heard everything she said and knows now why she wants to leave. He stops her and says, "You're now in stage 4 of loving me. I won't let you leave." Lee tells him to forget everything she said and pretend she didn't say anything. He replies, "But I heard it all. Instead of leaving, just bury your feelings as if they never existed. You don't have anywhere else to go, and I won't care where you are or look for you, because I don't love you." Then he walks away, leaving her heartbroken and in tears. The next morning, she goes to a real estate agent and asks him to sell her house. He tells her the place has been abandoned for over 15 years. Because it had been abandoned for over 15 years before she bought it, the agent tells her it'll be hard to sell. She then asks about the value of Cam's restaurant, and he says it's worth a lot because it's finished to the highest standard and in a prime location. She's surprised and says, "Wow, it turned out to be really expensive."